Chosen one, anchor your spirit to every word I am about to say. That noise inside your head right now, the second guessing, the replaying, the wondering if you did it wrong. Silence it, just for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to deliver is not a motivational speech, it is a verdict. The enemy has been working overtime this week, for one reason and one reason only. He knows what you just survived. And more than that, he knows what surviving it just unlocked. It all ends now. The confusion, the isolation, the crushing weight of a test you didn't even know you were taking. But hear this clearly. It is not ending because time ran out. It is ending because you passed. You passed in a way most people never do. You passed in silence. Think back to that moment this week, maybe even in the last 72 hours, when you had every right to explode, every right to defend yourself, to expose what was done to you, to make sure everyone in the room understood your side. And you didn't. You swallowed it. You went quiet when every cell in your body was screaming at you to fight back. You chose silence when the world was waiting for your collapse. You didn't know it then, but that was not weakness. That was the final answer on the hardest test of your life. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment, and it was scheduled before the foundations of the earth. You are not stumbling onto a video. You are receiving a verdict. Stay until the very last second of this message. In the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the legal decree from heaven that confirms what your silence actually did in the spirit realm. I am going to expose the specific lie the enemy planted in your mind immediately after you stayed quiet. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this season shut and locks the door on every assignment that was sent to break you. Do not click away. Your future self is begging you to stay. Because if you leave before the end, you will walk out of this without the one thing the accuser does not want you to know about what you just won. My name is Zerekiel. I have spent years studying the hidden patterns of the spirit realm, the warfare that targets chosen ones the moment they begin to rise, the weapons most people are never taught to use, and the divine setups disguised as the worst weeks of their lives. I have walked over 10,000 chosen ones through their moment of breakthrough. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit the notification bell right now. Not because I need the numbers, but because the next message I release might be the one written specifically for the war you do not see coming tomorrow. Now let me tell you what the last few days have actually looked like. I know the atmosphere has felt strange, not loud strange, quiet strange. The kind of quiet that presses in on you. Maybe you sat alone this week, in your room or in your car, and you felt something you could not name. Not sadness exactly, not anger, something heavier, something final, like you had just survived something enormous and no one around you even knew a battle had taken place. Maybe you woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and just stared at the ceiling, running it all back through your mind, asking yourself whether staying silent was the right call. Or maybe you have been carrying a specific moment around like a stone in your chest, replaying it over and over, wondering if your restraint was wisdom or if it was just fear dressed up as peace. You feel suspended, like the test is over, but no one has handed you the results. Like you passed through fire and came out the other side, but you are still standing in the smoke, waiting for confirmation that you actually made it. And in that suspension, the enemy has started whispering a very specific lie. Listen to your thoughts right now, because he is in there. He is telling you that your silence meant nothing. He is replaying that moment when you chose not to respond, not to fight back, not to defend yourself. And he is rebranding it as passivity, as weakness, as you missing your moment. He is telling you that the people who saw you stay quiet now think less of you. That you let yourself be walked over, that a stronger version of you would have spoken up, would have clapped back, would have made sure the truth was known. The accuser is telling you that your silence was a forfeiture, that you handed the enemy the victory by not standing up. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Isaiah 54 verse 17 says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Listen to that promise. Every tongue that rises against you, you shall condemn. Not by screaming, not by fighting back in the flesh, but through the heritage that belongs to you as a servant of the Most High. Your silence was not a surrender. It was a legal move in the court of heaven. When you refused to retaliate, you handed the case to a judge the enemy cannot bribe, cannot intimidate, and cannot appeal. You did not forfeit. You filed. The heaviness you feel is not the weight of defeat. It is the weight of a gavel coming down. It is the tension of a verdict being written in your favor in a courtroom the enemy thought he owned. You think you lost that moment because you went quiet. But let me reframe your reality right now. You did not lose that moment. You weaponized it. The hardest test of your life was never about whether you could win loudly. It was about whether you trusted the God of silence enough to let heaven fight what your hands could not touch. And you did. You stayed quiet. You did not expose, did not retaliate, did not collapse. And that restraint was not you missing your moment. That was you passing the test that unlocks the next level. You won. You won quietly. And the silence that the enemy tried to use against you is the very evidence heaven is using to seal your verdict. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the chosen one's mantle. This sacred guide reveals the 12 divine codes behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. The codes that turn the life heaven already wrote over you into the life you actually walk. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let's go deeper, because the verdict has been declared, but the revelation is only beginning. Here is what most people never understand about silence. It is not empty. Silence, in the hands of a chosen one, is one of the most loaded weapons in the arsenal of heaven. But the enemy has spent years, maybe your entire life, teaching you to be afraid of it. He has conditioned you to associate silence with shame, with being overlooked, with losing. Because he knows something about silence that most people never discover until it is too late for him. He knows that when a chosen one goes quiet in the middle of warfare, something shifts in the spirit realm that cannot be undone. When you refuse to fight in the flesh, you force the fight into a dimension where the enemy has already lost. That is why the pressure on you this week was so specific. It was not random. It was targeted. The assignment was not to hurt you. It was to make you react. Because a reactive chosen one is a neutralized chosen one. The moment you take the bait, the moment you defend yourself in the flesh, you step out from under the covering that was protecting you and you enter a battle on enemy ground. But you didn't take it. You stayed under the covering. And that decision, that one quiet, agonizing decision, just repositioned everything. But here's where it goes deeper. Because staying silent was only the first half of what happened. The second half is what the enemy is desperately trying to prevent you from understanding right now. When you passed that test, you didn't just survive a hard week. You broke a cycle, not a small one, a generational one. Think about the pattern that has followed you. Think about how many times you have been placed in a situation where someone did something to you, dismissed you, betrayed you, underestimated you, and you felt the pull to prove yourself, to make them see, to demand the recognition that was rightfully yours. And maybe sometimes you gave in to that pull, and maybe every time you did, the cycle reset, the wound reopened, the story repeated. Because the cycle was never about them. It was always about you learning to carry what God placed inside you without needing the world to validate it first. Joseph understood this. Not immediately, not easily, but somewhere between the pit and the prison, Joseph stopped trying to explain himself to people who could not see what God had already shown him. He stopped defending the dream. He stopped needing his brothers to believe it before it came true. And it was in that posture, that quiet, faithful, undefended posture, that the dream grew roots deep enough to survive every storm between the promise and the palace. And this is where something critical has to land. You have been carrying a calling that is too heavy for human validation. The weight of what God placed inside you cannot be held up by people's opinions. It cannot survive if it depends on someone else's acknowledgement. And part of what this test was doing, part of what this week was doing, was severing that dependency. God was not just testing your silence. He was weaning you off the need for the room to understand you. Because where you are going, not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will celebrate you. And if you need them to, you will never fully arrive. Now, stay with me. Because what's coming next is the piece that changes everything. And most people never see it until it is already too late to use it. What I want you to see is this. The lies that came after your silence were not random. They were surgical. The enemy did not just whisper anything into your mind. He whispered the exact thing that would make you question the one decision he feared the most. He whispered weakness because strength had terrified him. He whispered that you were overlooked because your restraint had just made you visible in heaven. He whispered that you lost because you had just won. And the sophistication of that strategy tells you something important about the nature of your assignment. The enemy does not deploy his most precise weapons against people who are not a threat. The level of the lie tells you the level of what you are carrying. What came after your silence was not a random attack. It was a counteroffensive. And counteroffensives only happen when the enemy has just taken a loss. But let me challenge you with something. Because this is the part most people skip over. And skipping it is exactly why they end up back in the same test 6 months later. It is one thing to survive the silence. It is another thing entirely to receive what the silence unlocked. Most chosen ones pass the test and then immediately hand back what they just won. Not because they are weak, but because they do not know how to receive. They do not know how to stand still in the aftermath of a breakthrough and let God fill what the battle emptied out. They go straight from the fire into the next fight, without ever stopping to let the healing happen. They survive the wound and then pick it back up like it belongs to them. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely. Receiving is a spiritual discipline. It requires a posture that is completely opposite to the one you were just in. You just spent days, maybe weeks, bracing, absorbing, enduring. And now, right now, God is asking you to open, to stop bracing, to let what he has prepared for this moment actually reach you. Elijah understood this. After the most spiritually intense confrontation of his life on Mount Carmel, after calling down fire from heaven, after a victory so enormous it should have left him untouchable, Elijah collapsed. He ran. He asked God to take his life, not because he was weak, but because he had never been taught that after the fire, you are allowed to be still. And what did God do? He did not rebuke him. He did not remind him of the victory he had just won. He fed him. He let him sleep. He met the man exactly where he was and said, "The journey is too great for you to walk it empty. The journey ahead of you is too great for you to walk it empty." And God is not asking you to gather yourself and charge forward right now. He is asking you to receive, to eat, to rest in the truth that the battle was real, the win was real, and the season that is opening on the other side of this week is more than you have had the language for up until now. And what's coming in just a moment, stay with me, is the layer beneath even that. The hidden root most chosen ones never name. The one thing sitting underneath the cycle that no one warned you about. Because here is the truth about transformation that most spiritual teaching never reaches. You can break a cycle and still carry the root that created it. You can win the battle and still be tethered to the very thing you fought against. Joseph made it to the palace, but the moment his brothers walked through the door, every unhealed thing rose to the surface. The favor was real. The promotion was real. But so was the wound. And the wound, if left unnamed, will find its way into the next chapter of your story and begin rewriting it before you even realize what's happening. So, I need to ask you something, and I need you to sit in this question without rushing past it. What have you been calling your strength that is actually your protection? Think carefully, because some of the things you believe are your greatest spiritual muscles. Your independence, your ability to function alone, your capacity to keep moving without help. Some of those things are not strengths. They are walls. They are the things you built after someone broke what was open in you, and now you call them gifts because they have kept you safe. But safety is not the same as freedom. And God is not trying to keep you safe in this next season. He is trying to set you free. Hidden underneath that truth is another one. The thing that has been feeding your delay is not the enemy's power over you. It is your belief in his power over you. There is a version of spiritual warfare that keeps the chosen one perpetually in fighting position. Always braced, always vigilant, always scanning for the next attack. And while discernment is real and warfare is real, there is a form of that posture that has quietly become an identity. You have been so long in the fight that you do not know what you look like outside of it. You have defined yourself by what you are surviving, and without realizing it, you have built a life around managing warfare rather than walking in dominion. But dominion does not look like constant defense. Dominion looks like a person who is so settled in who they are that the enemy's tactics simply have no purchase. Dominion is not fighting harder. It is standing so firmly in your identity that the battle loses its leverage. Now here is the part you probably didn't expect. The thing that has been blocking you is not what you thought. It is not the enemy. It is not your past. It is not the people who hurt you. It is the unspoken agreement you made with the version of yourself that almost didn't make it. Somewhere along the way, in one of the hardest moments of your life, you made a quiet agreement with smallness. Not because you chose weakness, but because the pain was so real, and the risk of hoping again felt like more than you could survive losing. And that agreement has been running in the background of every decision since then. It has been the quiet voice that softens your expectation before God can disappoint it. It has been the invisible ceiling you duck under before anyone else can push you down. And until that agreement is broken, truly broken, not just acknowledged, the door that this season is trying to open will keep hitting something you don't know is still standing in the way. That agreement ends tonight. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me. Speak it out loud. Let the atmosphere hear it. I break every agreement I made with smallness. I renounce every identity I built from survival that was never meant to be permanent. I release the version of me that believed hoping was too dangerous and that silence meant defeat. I receive the verdict of heaven over this season of my life. I receive the healing the battle left behind. I receive the fullness of what my restraint unlocked, what my silence declared, and what my endurance earned in the courts of eternity. I am not behind. I am not overlooked. I am not forgotten. I am a chosen one, stepping into the season heaven has been preparing for me long before I was prepared to receive it. The cycle is broken. The agreement is dissolved. The door is open, and I walk through it now, not with permission from the people who couldn't see me, not with validation from the voices that doubted me, but with the seal of the Most High over my life and the authority of a verdict that cannot be appealed. It is finished, and I am ready. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, share it with someone who is still in the middle of their silent season. Leave a comment below with the word verdict. Just that one word, so I know who received this today. And if you want to go deeper into the 12 divine codes that reveal exactly what God is unlocking in this moment of your life, the Chosen One's mantle is waiting for you in the first pinned comment below. What you just survived was not the end. It was the door, and it is open.